She's back and she's dangerous. Leylah is terrorizing Stuttgart, and Leylah Fernandez should be absolutely terrified. Forget everything you thought you knew about Leylah. Forget the rankings. Forget the early losses. Forget every moment where people questioned whether this young Filipina had what it takes to compete at the very highest level of women's tennis. Because what is happening right now, in the lead-up to the posh tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart, Germany, is something that nobody fully saw coming. And it is something that one particular player, a certain Leylah Fernandez of Canada, is going to feel firsthand the moment she steps onto that indoor clay court and looks across the net. Leylah Fernandez is panicking. And if she is not panicking yet, she absolutely needs to start, because Leylah has arrived in Stuttgart not as a hopeful underdog, not as a feel-good story, and certainly not as an easy first-round victim. She has arrived as a weapon, a fully loaded, razor-sharp, mercilessly prepared weapon who spent the days before this tournament doing things that most players only dream about. Sparring with Coco Gauff, hitting with IGA Swiatek, and then, as if to put the whole tennis world on notice, walking onto a practice court and absolutely dismantling Linda Noskova, the very same Linda Noskova who humiliated her just weeks ago, in the most dominant, commanding, ruthless fashion imaginable. This is not the old Leylah. This is something entirely different, something far more dangerous, and Stuttgart is about to find that out. Let us begin with the practice match, because this is where the story truly ignites. Just days before the Stuttgart Open was set to get underway, Leylah and Noskova found themselves on the same practice court on the indoor clay surface at the tournament facility. Now, for those of you who need a reminder about the history between these two, let us take a quick trip back to Indian Wells 2026. In the fourth round of that prestigious hard-court Masters event, Linda Noskova did not just beat Leylah. She destroyed her. The scoreline was a brutal, unforgiving 6-2, 6-0. A double bagel that sent a very clear message that Noskova was the bigger, stronger, more powerful player, and that Leylah had no answers for the Czech's relentless aggression and pace. That kind of result does not disappear quickly. It stays with you. It lives in your memory during every late-night practice session, every moment of doubt, every time you wonder whether you truly belong at the top of this game. But here's what separates the truly great players from everyone else. The truly great ones do not let those scorelines define them. They use them. They take the pain, they convert it into fuel, and they come back stronger, sharper, and more prepared than ever before. And that is precisely what Leylah did. Because in Stuttgart, on that indoor clay, the match unfolded in a way that turned the Indian Wells narrative completely upside down. Leylah did not just win the practice session. She dominated it. She controlled the tempo from the very first rally, dictated the terms of every exchange, and refused to allow Noskova a single comfortable moment on that court. Under pressure, her serves were precise, powerful, and far more lethal than anything Noskova had encountered from her at Indian Wells. She moved with fluidity, she struck the ball with intent, and she kept sending the ball back with such depth and consistency that Noskova's famous aggression began to crumble. Because that is what clay does to aggressive players who are not fully in rhythm. It slows everything down just enough to expose the cracks. And Leylah, already well-versed in the art of construction on the red dirt, was the one forcing Noskova into one extra shot at every single turn. One extra shot that became the margin of error. One extra shot that turned the momentum inexorably in the Filipinos' favor. By the time that practice session concluded, the message could not have been clearer. The 6-2, 6-0 Indian Wells scoreline had been answered. Violently, emphatically, and with the kind of authority that told everyone watching that Leylah was not just back. She was evolving. Yes, it was a practice match. There are no ranking points on the line during a training session. There are no crowd-filled arenas, no pressure of a live scoreboard ticking away under the stadium lights. But anyone who has spent significant time around professional tennis will tell you the same thing without hesitation. How a player performs in the final practice sessions before a major tournament is one of the most reliable indicators of their true readiness. It is unscripted. It is competitive. There are no excuses and no hiding places when you are out there with another touring professional who is equally hungry, equally focused, and equally prepared. Leylah did not just win that session. She won it convincingly. And after what Noskova had done to her at Indian Wells, the psychological dimension of that victory is worth more than any practice statistic ever could be. But here's the thing that makes this even more extraordinary. The Noskova demolition did not happen in isolation. It did not come out of nowhere on a random Tuesday when everything happened to click. It was the product of an entire preparation week that reads like something from a tennis fairy tale. Because in the days leading up to Stuttgart, Leylah was not just going through the standard motions of tournament prep. She was on court with two of the greatest players in the entire world. Two players who, between them, hold more titles and more ranking points than most players see in an entire career. The first was Coco Gauff, world number 3, reigning US Open champion. One of the most complete, most mentally formidable, and most athletically gifted players on the WTA Tour. The two of them took to the practice court together, and what struck those watching was not just the quality of the tennis being exchanged. It was the dynamic between the two players. There was visible energy. There was banter. There was an ease and comfort with which Leylah carried herself alongside one of the sport's biggest names. Gauff was on the court offering real tactical guidance, thoughts on court positioning, advice on point construction, the kind of priceless insight that you can only truly absorb when you are hearing it from someone who has been on the biggest stages and conquered them. And here's the thing that made that moment so extraordinary. Leylah did not receive that advice as a student sitting nervously at the feet of a master. She received it as a pay. She will probe your ability to construct points under duress, to stay patient when the rallies stretch out, and to find a way through when an opponent is hitting the ball higher, heavier, and harder than virtually everyone else on tour. The fact that Leylah held her own in those sessions against Swiatek, and then turned around the very next day and proceeded to dismantle Linda Noskova with total authority, tells you everything you need to know about the trajectory of this player's preparation. She did not come to Stuttgart to warm up. She did not come to Stuttgart to find her feet. She arrived having already been tested by the two players who, week in and week out, set the standard for what excellence in women's tennis looks like. And she had come through those sessions not just intact but emboldened. Gauff one day, Swiatek the next, Noskova taken apart after that. That is a preparation week that would make any coach in the world smile. And now we arrive at the match everyone has been talking about. The first-round draw that looked manageable on paper but is rapidly becoming one of the most compelling first-round storylines in Stuttgart in recent memory. Leylah Fernandez, Canadian, world number 25, experienced, battle-hardened, and equipped with a left-handed game that has given countless opponents sleepless nights over the years. She famously reached the final of the US Open as a teenager, making her one of the most celebrated young talents her country has ever produced. She has clay court experience, she has big stage composure, and she has the kind of tenacious fighting spirit that makes her incredibly difficult to put away even on her worst days. On paper, and only on paper, Fernandez is the favorite here. She is ranked higher. She has more experience at the WTA 500 level. She has navigated the pressures of the biggest tournaments in the world and has come out the other side stronger for it. On paper, this should be a routine first-round win for the Canadian. But paper is where favorable statistics live. The actual court is where the truth gets decided. And on the court, the truth right now is that Leylah is playing some of the most inspired, most fearless, most technically complete tennis of her young career. This match also carries a layer of narrative significance that makes it impossible to overlook. Because Leylah Fernandez is not just a ranked opponent. She is a player with deep Filipino roots, and this will be the very first time these two players have ever met in singles competition at the professional level. Two left-handers, both connected in different ways to the Philippines, both carrying the hopes and passions of Filipino tennis fans across the world as they step onto the same court for the first time. The storyline writes itself. Two of the sport's most exciting emerging talents, carrying an entire island nation's pride between them, colliding on the indoor clay of one of the most prestigious and stacked tournaments on the WTA calendar. And Fernandez knows the stakes better than most. Because word travels fast in professional tennis. The players talk. The coaches talk. Everyone who was present at that Noskova practice session knows what they witnessed. Everyone who saw Leylah hold her own against Swiatek, everyone who watched her move and strike and compete with a laser-focused confidence against Gaff, they have all been carrying that information around the locker rooms and the practice courts since the week began. Fernandez is not walking into this match blind. She knows what Leylah is capable of right now. She knows this version is different, more dangerous, more complete, more ready to seize a big result on a big stage. So what does Fernandez do with that knowledge? That is perhaps the most fascinating psychological question hanging over this entire match. Does the information sharpen her focus and raise her level?